Amen. All right. So good evening, everyone. My name is Idowu Olaniran, and grace of God. Oh, all right. So you hear me? Can you hear me now? All right. So good evening, everyone from good evening, Nigeria. All right. My name is Idowu Olaniran. By the grace of God, I'm an oracle of God. I'm a tutor, and I'm an industrial chemist. So I fit somewhere in between those three dots. Like part of my said, I'm an entrepreneur. Um, a lecturer by the grace of God, and I'm also a tutor. So I'm a pastor. So, um, to fit the context of this discussion, let me be straight to it. My growing up, especially between the age of 10 to 15, uh, I will say that I will say I will say that sorry. I would say that if I have to plot the I would say that if I have to I would say that if I have to so I would say that if I have to plot the graph of my experience of how life has been from 10 to 15, it will likely be sinusoidal, or probably it will be a trajectory that is going down. But because at that age, I grew up in an environment where I see most often are the negatives. Negatives in every aspect, negative in aspect of family, negative in aspect of education, negative in aspect of finances. Is an environment where dreaming is considered pride. It's an environment where um aid me part of life, considered you are someone that proud. So in that context, back in primary school, I know I need to be very good, in class, having very high scores, all those. But coming to secondary school, it was it was a different ball game. Of course, not like I was a bad student, but I just feel I couldn't do up to my expectation, to up to my potential in secondary school. From JSS1 in Nigeria, in high school, we have JS1, JSS. Initially, the score was so high. Later, there were different stages. I felt like, wow, the score was not as good as it should be. But in all those, I had different lessons to learn. So that particular age for me was not the best time of my life in different aspects, but it was altogether not useless because I picked several lessons from that point, which were very vital to my development as a person in every aspect of my life. So that's how 10 to 15 was for me. Okay, all right. So let me say that the negative was what paved the way for the positives in my life. You know, one thing I did from, yeah, yeah. Yes. So one thing I learned from that, uh, ways by which things will not work. Thomas Edison was trying, and he did that several times and it was not working. And then it was you did it several times and then it didn't work. So that was a waste of time. He said, no, I only learned 999 different ways how a bulb will not work. So I, at that age, I knew different things that can make a life go south. I learned different things that can make marriages go south. I learned different things that can never be beneficial to one's finances. Now, knowing several negatives has reduced my chances of error because I now know that, oh, all right, let me give example now. I know that no matter how intelligent you are, if you are not someone that read consistently, you are not deliberate about your life, you are not deliberate about your future, you are not going to do so well academically. So it helped me by the time I began to discover myself to know that being intelligent is not enough, talent is never enough. There is need for hard work, there is need to put in that hard work into whatever one is doing. So that experience helped me to eliminate several things that can lead to negative results in one's life. It helps me to know that there is nothing like results. You don't pray for results. You pray to give the right efforts. So I know that as long as I can give the right efforts, I'm definitely going to get the best of results. So it's not first about the result, it's first about the effort, and my prayer should be directed towards my effort, not my result. So I was able to pick all those and it helped me to transform. So it helped me to transform. It's helped me to bring the best into my life. And of course, I don't want to look like where I came from. So, and I knew I did not have all the opportunities that several other people had. So I need to work extra harder. I need to do what people that maybe had some privileges, what they would not necessarily have to do. I have to do them. So it was beneficial, and that was how it helped me transform. So whatever.
Okay, so thanks. So I took note that you used the
life.
negatives in
Use
your
the
life.
negative in your life to as a springboard into success. So thanks for sharing. Now, were there relationships in your life at that time? Were there people you needed to separate yourself from? And how did you handle that? Because I know in a negative environment, there will definitely be also negative people. So how did you manage that? If any experience as such?
Okay, so let me talk about the negative and the positive. Let me
Okay.
start with the negative because that was the direction of the question. Yeah, I
Okay.
could remember in high school. Um, in Nigeria, we have the senior school, the senior high school. We have SS1 to SS3. Back in SS1, I didn't really have a purpose. I really didn't. I wasn't really thinking about the future. But I have these two close friends. I wouldn't know would be watching this data, so I won't mention their name. So one was one was in art class, one was in commercial. No, I guess both were in commercial class. So yeah, when our result came out for the junior high school exam, my
Okay.
result was like one of the best in our school. It's not like I was a bad student. I was just not putting in the effort. So the results, see, the results, when it's not like the results were completely bad. It's just that it's not as good as it should be. So the result was still one of the best in the school. And then, but I was meant to be in science class. Because of those friends, I will go to art class. I think it's commercial class then. I will go there to sit down with them and discuss with them because they were my friends. So,
Mm.
but as time goes on, I discovered that I deliberately need to cut off these people from my life. I deliberately
Mm.
need to. So it was not an easy decision to make. And one of the ways to do that is by cultivating the right leadership. So one of the ways to end
You
the
said by
negative leadership,
cultivating what?
right relationship. So
Okay.
uh,
Okay. Yeah.
basically, like a philosopher said, man is a social animal. We always have to relate with one person or the other at different points in our life. So um, one way not to move with the wrong people is to move with the right people. So, and at that point, I
Mm.
had
Mm.
some other students that also had bright future ahead of them, even though the environment was not so conducive for that. And um, yeah, so because of that, because of that, I began to develop relationship with them, and then we formed a group, we formed a reading group, you know, and in that reading group, there were about five of us, and then we pick a subject each. When we pick each subject,
Mhm.
you go to read your own part. You go to read each subject, then you come back to teach others. So cultivating right leadership helped me to break with negative leadership. So that because you won't have time for both. So because my time was a bit channeled in the right direction, I do not have so much time for the wrong relationship. So that was it.
Okay. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you
So
so much. So
one thing you said
one thing you
is
said is
getting into the right
getting to the right
relationship
relationship
will help you
will
to
help
get
you
out
to
of the
get
wrong
out of
ones.
Yeah.
So that's the
so
only
like
way.
that's the only way.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So
now,
now
if you look at
if you look at
your
your
teenage
teenage
years,
years,
what would you
what
say
would
was the biggest
the biggest
challenge
challenge
then, and how will
and how
you
will you
compare it with what is
compare it
happening
with
now
what's
today?
happening now today?
So, as
So
a teenager
as a
today,
teenager today,
what are those things
what
that
are
you
those things that
experience
you
that you feel
experience that you feel
that
that
is
is
happening as well
happening
today,
as
and
well
how
today?
can they
And how
overcome
can
it?
they overcome it?
Yeah. I would say that challenges differ based on environment.
Mm.
From my experience, there are some people that are born in a very godly family and they get to know some things earlier in life. Some people were born into a rich family and they were able to afford some basic things and, in fact, what is termed luxury. So, for those people, their challenge may be concentration,
Okay.
and there are other people that probably their environment, some do not even have textbooks, some cannot even afford to go to a good school. So for those kind of people, For my own case now, one of the major challenge was finances. Finances. At that point, I had to attend a government school, which was not the best at that point because there were several subjects that there were no teachers for. And in fact, there are subjects that I can't really remember being taught anything in class. No, I mean, not a single thing. I was telling someone that throughout my days in the high school, I can't remember being taught anything in chemistry. I can only
Wow.
remember being taught very minimal thing in physics. You know, let alone there are some subjects that we do not even have teachers at all. So that was a major challenge. That was a major challenge. But my dad told me something at a point. He said the person that wrote the textbook only had the same type of brain that you have, and he wrote the textbook. So you don't have any excuse. You can also use that. If someone can write a textbook with the same brain that you have, then you can at least read and understand. So that was the saving grace. I had to sit down with my textbooks to read because there was no teacher that was coming around to teach that. And it helped me, but it was also a disadvantage in the long run because I must say that by the time I got to the university, I really didn't know that people do read their class notes, and that became a challenge. So sometimes I read that, and I discover, wow, the result is not commensurate to my effort. It was not like I was not reading; it was just that um, I was not reading right because at that point, what I was required to read more was my notes, but what I was focused on was my textbook because that was what I was used to. So basically, I will just say that for teens, one of the major challenges that some face is the environment and the financial level, but everything can be turned to one's advantage. There is, and I always tell myself this: my situation is not the worst. And I can tell any teenager that is listening to this, your situation is not the worst. If you complain that, oh, I was born into a poor family, you need to go to Ajegunle in Nigeria and see people that are really living in serious poverty. You need to see people living in poverty in India, in Brazil. Yet many of them still do well in life. So the situation is not the worst. There is always a way to turn things around. If there is no textbook, borrow from your friend. If probably you discover there are no good role model around, then browse for one and begin to follow their footsteps. So that's it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so I like something that you said about your situation cannot be the worst. There will always be someone looking up to you
Yeah.
to, like, they're envying you practically. But that thing that you think is not important, someone is looking to have it, and then they'll be able to thank God for it. Yeah. So and something as well that I picked from what you said is that when you feel that, oh, I'm nothing or I don't have anything, one way that God works is it will show you someone that is successful, even having less than what you had, and then you won't have any excuse anymore. So I'll put that up this way, that there's no excuse for success. You
Yeah.
can succeed with what you have. And yeah, so thank you so much for sharing that. Now, if I look at your trajectory again, I'm still going back to that because I believe there's a lot to pick from that. Now, you were not taught, you can't remember being taught chemistry, right? And today, you're an industrial chemist, you know. So, how did that happen?
Yeah, how did that happen? Let me start with from that relationship aspect again. When
Okay.
I was a teenager, I had this friend. I had this friend. Yeah, I will mention his name now because it's on the
Okay,
podcast.
maybe you should not mention the name if you
Okay, okay,
yeah,
so
go
I shouldn't
ahead. Go
mention
ahead.
him.
No, you
All
can,
right.
you can.
So,
I'll just yeah.
all right, all right. His name is Kolade Lawa. So
Okay.
he's in UK now. And then
Okay.
then I attend a different church, and
Okay.
it's the kind of church that you attend, and you only hear things like Badura, come back, Badura, things like that. Pray so that you don't pray.
Maybe
But
okay, translating that like pray so that you won't pray. Pray now, so you will not have to pray in under duress later.
yeah, so there weren't really teachings on the process that leads to growth, that leads to having a purposeful life, having a bright future. So, but having this friend of mine, I just discovered that, yeah, some things began to change in his life. And then at a point, he introduced me to a brother in his church. He said, no, you always tell me, then come to my church. And as of that time, I was already losing interest in religion. I was already losing interest in Christ. I was like, see, it's like this church is not for me. For the fact that, you have revival prayer, like we usually call it here in Nigeria. And then after that, they tell you that, oh, we are starting another one in the next 2 days. I always question my mom, why are we praying the same prayer if the one we prayed has been answered? So is that the prayer is not getting answered? Is that something is wrong somewhere? So for that reason, I was already losing interest. And then at that point, he came so he just tell me, come to our church. So I accepted the invite. I went to his church one day, and then there is this teenagers coordinator they had then. And he just picked up interest in me, like he picked up interest in several of us then. And it was of really great influence to our lives, sincerely. And he told me then, when we discussed, then we just tell me, you have a mediocre mindset. I said, he will not miss what you say. You have a mediocre. He asked me then, he said, oh, if you write JAMB and you do not pass, will you go to Polytechnic? I said, yeah, I will go, because I really don't see people going to university like that. Maybe because in my state as of that time we didn't have a university. Subsequently, we had one.
Okay, so just to translate, the Polytechnic is like a technical college, and JAMB is the entry exam into the university in Nigeria. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I was like, yeah, I'm good. He was like, no, you have a mediocre mindset. You need to change your mindset. You need to aim for the best. You need to do this. You need to do that. So I also started, it initially looked like this brother is even proud. Why are you telling me I have a mediocre mindset? At least I'm trying for my level. So they sympathize with me, no sympathy, nothing. We just push us to do better. But yeah, I just decided to give the push. Industrial chemistry, I wasn't really planning to study industrial chemistry. I could remember a day when I was in high school, we were coming back, and then one of my classmates just said, which course do you want to study? I said, I don't even know. He said, for me, I want to study industrial chemistry in the higher institution. That's the first time I heard industrial chemistry. I didn't know so much about the course. So, but I discovered that, well, I love chemistry. I tend to get it when I read, even though I get biology much better. But I was like, biology, we like when I read biology in the institution. I don't know so many courses then, actually. So, but at least I got to know about that. So I checked up universities that were offering the course. So I had to pick the cheapest so that I will be able to finances won't be a big problem. That's how I got to industrial chemistry. Read for the course, kept reading my chemistry, other courses, and then that's how I found myself. Not like I really planned it.
So, thanks for sharing that. So you transitioned from not having a chemistry class really in high school to reading by yourself and getting your bachelor's in chemistry, industrial chemistry, even up to masters, and now PhD. So it shows that transformation. So I have two questions for you. How did that mindset shift happen for you? I know you mentioned that there was a counselor that was helping you drive that mindset change. But as a child today, how did that mindset change happen to you? That's the first question. And the second part is, how did you handle the times that you did not really agree with what was said? Maybe because you did not understand it. How did you handle that without being disrespectful? And you could also share if you were and how you would have handled it better.
Okay. So basically, how did my mindset shift? How did I come about it? It was a gradual process.
Okay.
It was a gradual process. It's not like something that just happened in a day, you know. A little here, a little there, and before one knows it, you just discover you are a changed person altogether. What I would just say, because but I can remember the final straw that broke the camel's back was when there was a particular doctor that spoke with us at a point, Dr. Kunle Ayimode, and he was telling us that, see, if you were given a particular question to solve by Boko Haram, Boko Haram were insurgents, Islamic insurgents
Yes.
in Nigeria, and very deadly one. And it was like if you are given a question to solve, and you were told that if you did not solve this question in 3 days, we are killing you, and you were locked in a room, given a textbook to read, and papers and everything to solve the question. It was like, you solve it in 3 days. We all said yes. It was not like, okay, so you will solve it in 3 days. Was it because your brain was changed? No. Was it because the question becomes simpler? No. It was like, let's assume it's a very difficult question and it's something you wouldn't solve normally. So will you still solve it? Yes, you will solve it because you are fighting for your life. He said, okay. So it's because you didn't look at education as a ticket to life in a way. That's why you are not putting in the best of efforts. And what you are not solving, the question you can't solve now, is not because you cannot solve them. It's just because you have not put yourself in the right position, with the right prayer to get the best out of yourself. So I that word I don't think is so much, but it changed me a lot. It changed me a lot. But even before that time, I've been attending different conferences, and that's why we encourage teenagers um, attend conferences, probably in your home church, in your environment, even meetings like this, where someone is adding a deposit to your life. Be there, because you never can tell when that sharp change will just happen. However, it will not just happen once, it will happen
A
um,
gradual process.
gradually until one discover that, oh, I've really changed. And then were there times that I disagreed with um my counselor, and how did I manage that? Yeah, there were times I disagreed with him. Let me give an example. When I was initially, initially, I I wrote the entrance exam into the university the first time, and my score was a little bit below the cutoff mark. So I was encouraged to attend the technical school and everything. But I said no, I'm not going. Of course, I've been told that I have to aim for the best. I said no, I will do that again. But that 1 year, a lot happened. In fact, in my environment, I think I just can't describe how, but it doesn't really look so bad not aiming for the best. It doesn't look so bad learning handwork and all those things. So they were already telling me that, oh, there is one carpenter there, and he's a very good one. He's very skilled at his work. So probably you just start going there and learn some things. But I said no. God grace came true for me, really. I said no. I said I'm not going there. I'm going to sit up for my job. And I didn't even have so much time to read that time, because another thing, I have to say that at that point, there these bricklayers that usually, for financial purposes, I work with them during the day. At night I will sit down to read. But the results came out. I passed, but at that point I can't afford to stay at home for another year. So I had to write entrance exam. He encouraged me not to write entrance exam to um technical school,
Taking college,
but
yeah.
I did.
Okay.
I did. I went
Okay.
ahead. I wrote the exam because I just knew I can't afford to stay at home again, lest I become a carpenter. so, so I went ahead. I wrote the exam. I wrote the exam and I passed really well. So, but
Mm.
fortunately for me, I also wrote the entrance exam to the university and I passed. But the good thing
Okay.
was that I used his Gmail to register for that entrance exam to the technical school. Because I used his
Okay.
Gmail, he discovered I was given admission, but he didn't tell me. He didn't
Okay.
mention it to me. So he was thinking that if he should tell me, I may not
You
put in
will
my
go for
best
that
to the
one.
university entrance exam and everything. So yeah,
Mm.
now I will not disagree with him if you tell me that because he knows better. As of that
Mm.
time, he has finished his master's degree. He was on his PhD at the University of Ibadan at that point. So he really understood what he was telling me that see, this is not the best for you, this is not the best you can do. And one thing I will just tell teenagers is that you need to trust your counselors, especially for someone that has gone ahead of you, that has seen what you have not seen, especially someone that you can see that the person is doing well in the aspect of life you're aspiring to do well. You need to follow their footsteps because
Mm.
nobody, I've learned in life that nobody succeed consistently by mistake. You can
Mm.
do something well for the first time by mistake, but you can't repeat success by mistake. So for someone that have replicative success, the person is not speaking, is not doing trial and error. The person actually knows what it means to be successful, and when the person is speaking to you, you need to listen, especially when it's in line with the word of God and it does not contradict any moral values.
Mm. Okay, so thank you so much. I really learned a lot from everything you've said. So, like, the best way to, like, you cannot repeat success by mistake. So, meaning you need success is is deliberate, incremental steps that takes you towards a goal. So, thank you for sharing that. Let me just paint a picture, if you don't mind, to people that are watching from all over the world. So, I believe the part of the Nigeria that you came from can be considered a rural area.
Yeah,
Where the
very
place
well.
you were talking about, that he
Yeah.
went to high school, he started life in a very like far in the country, like you call in the US, like in a rural area. And now, he, if you now we're talking about him being a chemist, being a pastor, and being an entrepreneur, helping other children to get to universities all over the world, into the great universities all over the world. So that transition, I know as well, like you said, that you cannot repeat success by mistake, and did not happen by chance, right? I know there is providence, there's God's providence in there, but there's also deliberate work from mentors, managing relationships around you, and following the right path. And so for me, one key thing that I've seen is that mindset shift, because if you are in a certain area, so if you're watching today or anytime, you are in a local area, you're in a rural area, or you're just in a place by yourself, like you don't know what to do. Don't give up, because this is just an example that now today we're on global platforms, and this tells you what your life can, just an example of what your life can be. So that's why I asked the question about your mindset. How did that mindset shift happen for you? And so it's impressive to know. I just wanted to paint a picture of what we're talking about, so people can understand that you don't need to you don't need to be born with golden or silver spoons, but whatever, whether it's a wooden spoon or plastic or whatever type of spoon, you can change it, and you
Yeah.
can change your life. You don't need
Um,
to stay just the way that you are. Yeah, so
Please,
thanks a lot for sharing. Yes, go
can I
ahead,
enter
sir.
into that? Okay. Let me just say that, one of the very basic thing I think about my life is that, like you said, God is providential. He works behind us to bring the best out of us because He factors our future into our present. So
Mm,
God knows what will become in the future, and the present. Oftentimes we look at just our present, that the situation is not so palatable, but God knows that the present has to teach us a lesson about our future. It prepares us, shape us for our future so that we can be fully fit for that particular purpose he has in plan for us. Um, let me say that a teenager may be looking at this, and the teenager is in a privileged position spiritually, privileged position academically, privileged position in terms of family. God has a plan for the future. God knows that that person needs that kind of environment for the plan he has for him in the future. So make the best use of that. Look at people ahead of you, have mentors that can help you in that part. And for someone that is in a very bad condition, so to speak, not so good condition, um, we have to look at it. You have to look at it as though it's part of God's training for you to become who He wants you to be in the future. In the past 8 years, I've had the privilege of teaching students by the grace of God in different parts of the world, and most especially in Nigeria, because in Nigeria I had the privilege of teaching people from different backgrounds. From other part of the country, the people that I teach are more from privileged background, but in Nigeria more from different background. It's my experience helped me to relate with them. It helps me to come down to their level. It helped me to know that, see, you may look at yourself and say, no, there is nothing good that can come out of my life, but I know that something great can come out of that life. Because, and practically, let me just share the experience of a particular lady I will mention. She had a first exam years ago, and then I encourage her. As of that time, she has jettisoned the plan of going to school. She was into bag making, and I just said, no, 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 you can do well. You can still um, go to higher institution. You can do this. You can do that. She said, no, I can't. I said, yes, you can. She said, no, I can't. I said, all right. She said, you don't know how bad I've been. I said, all right, let me see your results, your past results. In fact, by the time she showed me the results, I almost agreed with her that just give up, because yeah, I've heard of that kind of result before, but that was the first time I'm seeing one. I saw array of F, in our high school exam here in the country. The worst result you can have is the worst grade you can have is F9. The next is E8. I think she had 7 F9, 1 E8,
Wow.
and then probably 1 C. And I was like, wow. But something within me just tell me that still encourage her. I did encourage her. Funny enough, that year she sat up again, wrote the exam. Eventually, she passed, entered into higher institution. Now she has after higher institution in Nigeria, the next thing you do is you go for service. She's done with the service. She's married now. Now, what I'm just trying to say is that no matter how bad your situation is, don't give up. God changes situation. Don't look at yourself and say, no, I can't do well in life. I can't make it. I can't do well spiritually. Oh, my environment is so bad. I can't make it academically. I can't do well in any aspect of life. But you can do well. It's just about seeing the right vision, changing your gaze, looking beyond your environment, and telling yourself that if someone has done it before, I can do it again. I can do it again. So there is a law that is called the iron law of the universe. It says whatever anyone has done before can be repeated by following the same set of principles that bring the initial results. If somebody can make rice by, I don't know if rice, yeah, I think rice should be a
It's universal, yes.
Okay, so if someone can make rice by boiling water and then add the rice, the worst that can happen is that you make rice, whether it's sweet or it's not sweet, at least you are going to make rice boiling water and adding rice. So if someone has done well before, starting from a terrible background, you can do better. You can do better. Just learn from experience. Your own situation is not the worst.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. So I learned a lot from that. Like, look beyond your environment, look beyond your background. Don't let your environment define who you are. And for some people watching, it might not be every part of your life. It could be your academics, it could be your spiritual life, it could be your relationship with people. This can be your this cannot be your end. it can only be better, but you need to see it and decide that you want it to be better. So thank you so much for sharing. Now, coming to one point that I wanted you to touch is, I know that you've taught children or teenagers in the last 8 years all over the world. What would you say is the biggest challenge that they face right now,
Themselves.
and how can they overcome it?
The biggest challenge they face is themselves. I can be very, I think that's very direct. Yeah, that is themselves.
Okay, tell us more, sir.
Um, I've come to make a resolution within myself that when someone conclusively that he can't do well in life, the person won't do well. At least for someone to help you, for you to be lifted, one thing you have to agree to is that I can be better and I will be better. So immediately you agree to that, that forms a template for growth in every other aspect of life. So um most often time people find it difficult to just believe that, oh, I can do it. And sometimes when they find courage to believe I can do it, they do not find consistency to the consistency to execute that change. And everything still depends on that student, it still depends on that teenager. But the basic point is that at any point when anyone believes that I can change, that change has already begun. That same moment. Um, Let me give an example. There was a particular lady, and then the dad said she as of that time in high school, she was at the elementary stage. Like I said before, in Nigeria we have SS1 to 3. She was at the elementary stage SS1. Then we usually conduct exams for them to know if the person can fit to science, art, or commercial in Nigeria. For in some circles, we look at it like, if you are very good, you can cope in science. If you are not that good, then you can't cope in other. You can't cope in science, so you go to other aspects. So, and then it was concluded that she can't do well. But my dad came to school and said, look, this lady can do better. This lady can do well. Don't give up. Let's just give it a try. And deliberately handed that lady over to me. I said, I've heard that you are a good teacher. Well, by the grace of God, that's what he said. So I am not, but that's what he said. He said, please, I know this lady can do it. So, and I spoke with the lady. Are you sure you can do well? Are you sure? She said yes. And out of that, I said, if you start making efforts now, that effort won't place you at the same pedestal with those that have been doing well before. For example, if someone is scoring 40, you are scoring 30, and then you start putting in the effort now, it may not automatically give you 80 immediately, but at least there will be improvement. I said that marginal effort is all I need, and that marginal effort will bring marginal increase in your results. So if you can just put in that little effort, it will add little. I said if you keep up with that, you will discover that eventually you may be at the same level with those people that have been leading their class for a very long time, your class for a very long time. Well, she took to the advice, she believed that she can do it. And now the lady is in the higher institution, she's studying nursing. That's one of the most difficult course to gain admission to in Nigeria, but that's not the basic thing. When she got to higher institution, she sent her result to me after the first year. First semester, she had just, I think, a B. Every other result was A. Then the second one, I think it was just a B2. Every other result was A. Now, what am I saying? Immediately, she believed that she can do well. And her story, as change of story has begun. So basically, when people believe, oh, I can't do well, it's difficult for them to do well because there is this way it positions the heart that even when you want to make the effort, you feel like even if I put in the effort, it won't bring anything out of my life. It won't amount to anything. But just put in the effort first and see what happens. But every marginal effort always gives marginal results. When you believe you can do well, you do well. If you believe you can't do well, no matter what you are doing, a little thing is sufficient to discourage you to take you off the path. So believe in yourself that you can do well, and believe in God that God has the best in stock for you. Yeah, God has the best in stock for you. God has, in fact, your present is not as good. It's nothing compared to the future. Even if your present is good, it's much better than what you have at present. So believe in God, put in the efforts, believe you can do it, and you are going to do it.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. So, and sharing from your experience with teenagers from all over the world that you've been teaching in this past 8 years. So, we've really enjoyed learning from you in this session. Now, final question to you will be that now that you've been teaching the teenagers for the past 8 years, have you seen a trend from the people you've taught on how they made the transitions of their lives? So, how they made those changes? How did those mindset changes happen for you? And how can the second leg of that question is how can churches, counselors, and schools do practical mindset changes? Like you mentioned earlier, your counselor did not just say, "Oh, go and pray," or you went from revival to revival without knowing how to go from knowledge to knowledge, or from one mindset change to another. And because I know why I'm asking that, I know that sometimes counselors and teachers and pastors could just say, "Oh, it is well with you. You need to go from glory to glory." But we miss sometimes the practical part of that to say, okay, this is how to go from this level to another level, or this is how to change your mindset, or practical ways to tell people that. So I wanted you to say more about that, considering mixing your background of being an entrepreneur, a tutor, a professor, and a pastor. So that is a rare mix that I want you to speak to this.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So, one thing I would say that I've seen that facilitates that kind of mindset change is deliberate mentorship. Deliberate mentorship. Um, One thing my mentor did for me was then at that time he allowed me to visit his house freely. So sometimes we just visit. um, He gives us food, we eat sometimes, and then later he began to introduce books to us. Um, yeah, and really, I knew he was very deliberate with what he was doing, but it didn't really look like it was. It just looks very natural, very, very natural. Just you go to someone's house, you just play, and as we're just playing and all those things, he will begin to chip in some words of advice, and then it just happened that those words began to change us, and it became a great step to us. And I've seen it happen with me too, in my own experience with teens, with students in different fields. Deliberate mentor, like I said, it takes someone that believes he or she can change for the person to change. But for that change to occur, someone must paint a different picture from what that person used to see. Many people cannot dream because they do not even know how their dream should look like. But someone needs to paint that picture to them to show them that, oh, this is the kind of thing you think about, this is the kind of future you think about. And several times I've discovered that the mindset of people change when you speak to them, when you paint the kind of future they should have, when you paint it to them, and when you paint the pathway to that future, when you show them that, oh, so they discover that, oh, I've been doing this thing wrongly. For example, it's different telling a student, oh, you must pass. A man wrote a book, start with why. start with why.
Okay.
So he mentioned that sometimes you are just told this is what you must do. This is
Would that be Simon
how you
Sinek?
must. Simon Sinek. So he said,
Okay. Cool.
this is what you must do. That is, but nobody explained that this is why you must do what you must do. I listened to a man years ago, and he's one of the senior pastors in Nigeria, and he said one of the reasons why he tried to succeed was because he discovered success was his only way out of poverty. So, but what was the reason why he said that? His teacher told him that, oh, your family is poor. If you want to be rich, be academically excellent. So someone has already painted a picture for him that there is an escape route. This is the escape route. So he knows at least a path to follow. So oftentimes people don't even know what they should dream about, but someone needs to speak to them. So I think churches need to come into this space. Even schools needs to fill this gap. It's not just about teaching students in class. In fact, one of my teaching philosophy is that the most important thing I need to teach a student is not chemistry, it's not mathematics, it is how to read consistently, and how to believe that when you read, you will understand. When a student gets that, even if I did not teach that student anything, that student will still succeed.
Yes, because they know how to go fish.
They know that. So the most important thing is not just coming to class, oh, the topic today is no, this is what we are doing. Or it's not just about teaching them to pray, but how do I pray? Why should I pray? When should I pray that will not affect my academics? Because many students struggle with that. Oh, I want to pray. The time I should pray, that's when I should also study. And then there is this conflicting interest at that, so they are not able to manage that. So the mentors need to come into place. Oh, these are the practical ways this thing can be done. That is mentorship. Mentorship. So I will advise that churches be very deliberate about mentoring the young one, telling them that, oh, okay, this is the pathway to this is the future to expect, this is the way to expect that future. You never can tell. Someone is getting changed. It will not look as though you are doing something so serious, but that little thing is changing someone. I will also encourage the teenagers, get yourself someone that can speak to you. Get yourself someone that can mentor you. Get yourself into church programs, into meetings where you are told that, yeah, you have a bright future ahead of you, and with consistency in God and your studies and in different aspects of your life, you will get there. So I think
thank you so much. So I think lots of insights from there. But I'll quickly want to ask you, I know we're over time a bit, but I'll just crave your indulgence to stay with us just a few more minutes. Now, are there 3 books that you would encourage teenagers to read that you believe helped your mindset change?
Okay. So let me start with the first one. The first one is No Excuse by Brian Tracy. No Excuse by Brian
No
Tracy.
Excuse by Brian Tracy. Okay.
Yes. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Napoleon Hill. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I will just say that the principles you learn there, translate it into your the principle is about business, but it can be translated into academic principles. The last book I mentioned Bible, of course, because I believe every Christian should study their Bible. Should study their Bible seriously. So many business principles, so many success principles, so many life-changing principles in the Bible. So the third one I'm going to mention should be, let me start with Why, because I've mentioned it today, by Simon Sinek.
Okay, thank you so much. So No Excuse by Brian Tracy, and then Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, and then the Bible, of course, has all the principles, is basic principles for life in whatever form, whatever area you find yourself, and then start with the Why by Simon Sinek. So thank you so much for sharing these items with us, and I believe that everyone has enjoyed this session so far. I think I have many more questions, but I guess we would have to take it on another session, because you stand at the intersection of business, faith, science, which is rare, is a rare mix. I know many people would stay in the cycle of science and faith, or business and faith, but that mix is important. And the fact that you've had about almost 10 years of experience working with teenagers as tutor, teaching in schools, and interacting with teenagers from all over the world. So you bring that huge experience onto the table. So I'll just say you give our speakers some emojis just to appreciate his presence. Yeah. And before, if we have any questions, we can start preparing those, and then we can take questions and go through them. So I'll just check if there are questions. Just you can unmute and speak if you have any questions. So, and I'll say thank you to Obani Jesu and Omolayo. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks, Rachel, for joining. And one of our former speakers also joining is Olumide Adaramoye. So thank you so much for joining so far. Now, before we wrap up this session, I just want you to speak that teenager with the situation, saying, how am I going to go from here? So I'll give you 1 minute to just talk to that teenager, and then we'll come back and take questions.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, so let me just say to that teenager that is feeling depressed, that is feeling stuck, that is feeling like the world is coming to an end, that no, this is not your end. This is not your end. This is not your end. God has great plan in stock for you. God has great plan in stock for you. So don't give up. And first thing I will tell you to do is to find Jesus, because he alone has the ability to change your life completely. And number two, I will tell you that as you find Jesus, find credible mentors, online, on sites, anywhere. Find, and one of the ways to do that, like the speaker, like my host has said, is to get yourself into books. There are several people that has passed through the situation that you are, and their life has been changed. So one of the ways to get into their life is to get into their books. If you have phone, you can get recordings of different people. When you listen to people whose life has changed speak, your life, it sow a seed of change into you. It sow a seed of change into you. So, let me summarize what I've said by saying that number one, get mentors, and get Jesus into your life. He has the ability to change your life. And number two, get mentors who are able to help you facilitate that growth process.
Okay, thank you so much. So I like the fact that you talked about get mentors, because one of the questions I would ask you maybe in subsequent sessions is, so how do I get a mentor? But you kind of touched on it. Get a book, get into their books, understand the way they went through their lives, and then you can learn from that. And then look at your faith book, look at the people around you, and then you can find mentors right there. So you find mentors in the right places. Thank you so much for sharing. So I'll just check again if there are questions as well. And Kamsi, do you have any question? Okay, so we'll just, yeah, you can go ahead.
So what was the most helpful Bible verse that kept you going through all the ups and downs of your life?
Question.
Did you get the question?
No, I couldn't hear that.
So what was the most helpful Bible verse that kept you going through all the ups and downs of your life?
I still can't hear that actually.
Okay, so the question is, what is the most helpful Bible verse that kept you going through all ups and downs?
Yeah, I would say Philippians chapter 1 verse 20. 21, I love the scripture a lot. Bible says, according to my expectation and my hope, that in nothing shall I be ashamed. But as always, even so now also, Christ shall be magnified in my mortal bodies, whether it be by life or by death. So, in nothing shall I be ashamed. Yeah, in nothing shall I be ashamed. Irrespective of your situation, in nothing shall you be ashamed. And that Christ will magnify himself in my mortal body. Why do I love this scripture? I'm not too sure I understand it fully now. But one thing I know is that God is interested in my progress, because the more I progress, the more God is revealed in me. So it gives me confidence that in whatever I do, God is interested in my success. And that I really don't know what it will mean for Christ to be magnified, because I know Christ is big already, is the biggest of all. So why get him magnified again? But one thing I know is that if Christ can be magnified, and if he needs human first to be magnified, it means what he will do in that life is so great, it's extremely great, that it will make him to be seen in a way that becomes compelling to several people. So that's my own favorite scripture, Philippians chapter 1, verse 20 to 21.
Okay, Philippians 1, 20 to 21. Thank you so much for sharing, and thanks, Kamsi, for the question. Yeah, so we've come to the end of the session today. Thank you so much for joining us from all over the world. And if you're watching this later, you can reach out to us on all our social media handles at Tweens and Teens Emerge. So Tweens is TWEEN and Teens Emerge. So those are our social media handles. Thank you so much for joining, and it's going to be a wrap on this second episode of 2026. And so see you next month. We're having 2 sessions every month, one in the middle of the month and one at the end, and we'll bring your way amazing speakers in our next session. So thank you so much. Please share and like and subscribe to these videos so we can reach more people. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the weekend. Thank you so much, sir. We enjoyed having you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be here.